It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Unwanted America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Welcome to the game show that always keeps you guessing tariff or not to tariff. Gary. Deal or no deal?
Well, no, the only thing I got out of that yesterday. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit. I did get a lot out of it, but
there's only one thing I got from yesterday.
The only thing I get out of it, Mr. President, please, again, for the 50th time, stop talking about Canada becoming a 51st state. Nobody wants it. There isn't one Republican that wants it to be the 51st state. Now, if it's a joke, when you tell a joke 1,000 times, it's no longer funny. And in a serious situation like yesterday, when you bring it up as some type of bargaining chip, when no Republican would vote for Canada becoming the 51st state because we would get 2 Democratic senators and a ton more liberal.
Was it 57 House members?
Yeah, and the vast majority would be Democrat liberals. You would make Canada the number 1 population state that's as far blue as you could possibly get. So, yeah. Mr. President, please just stop it, for God's sakes. No Republican wants Canada as the 51st state. No one. Stop it, please. Did I have enough fake anger there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. You don't know?
I don't know.
Why do you want me to go like this then?
Well, I don't know what anger is fake or not anymore.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, it's just stupid. It's just every time I'm like, no, you're promoting something that not one Republican wants.
It's the play yesterday seemed to be just all over the place. By the way, the people and the tech people, I'm sure it's all part of actually integrated into AI and algorithms, but still somebody has to write on the digital side all of these headlines when the breaking news is, happening. It's Trump is going to double the tariffs. It's like, should we wait on this and not send it out yet? You know what I mean? It's like, because it's, going to change in 30 minutes. Because when I saw that, I thought, no, he's not. That's not going to happen. But the markets have to go where the markets, here's the thing. This is why the markets react the way they react. Sometimes the markets are drunk. I've mentioned that a few times. But you have people in key positions at companies that have to assume everything is true from any administration. It's true until it's not. When they start talking about changing regulation, long before the regulation becomes actually regulation, companies are having meetings. They're planning, what do we need to do? Get HR in here, get payroll in here, get sales in here. What are we going to get logistics in here? What are we going to do to handle this? All of that at the company level, each individual company that's having to deal with whatever move the government makes is not and can't be a wait-and-see approach. You have companies that come out, producers that will come out and say, well, yeah, when they're asked directly from the media, well, what do you think about the tariffs? How's that going to affect your products? Well, cost for our products is going to jump. We expect the consumer to feel the impact in this timeline, blah, 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 blah. But behind the scenes in the boardroom, they're scrambling. Every move that is made, every announcement that is made, they have to stop what they're doing and assume that what is announced is going to happen. Until it's announced, it's not going to happen.
I saw an interesting analysis yesterday, and I thought it's something definitely to consider because I think they're right on it, that the stock market isn't necessarily reacting over the last 36 hours to the tariff threats back and forth. They're reacting to the president hesitating on whether we're going to be in a recession and then saying, basically, well, we don't know. And you and I had said this
I think CNBC or Fox Business had that story a couple of days ago.
It was like the markets pay attention to that because this is a president that, would normally say, no, we're not going to be in a recession until you're in the recession. The
other day he said, it's possible.
Right. The negative, I think the proper way for him to have answered that is, I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I've seen the Atlanta Fed numbers that we're in, that we're in negative growth right now. I don't know whether that's true or not because they've been wrong on their projections before.
And it changes a lot.
Right, and it changes a lot. But if so, that's a direct result of the Biden administration because we saw these numbers coming down and we're going to bring them up so that there isn't a recession. That's how you answer it. You don't, because that was what I think actually sent the markets to be a little bit jittery. And when he hesitated, then he was asked about hesitating. And again, he said, well, I don't know. That, I believe, is what helped to set off the market because you get to a point, you get to a point where the threats are going back and forth on what you're going to do, the tariff-wise and everything else. And then, one side backs off, the other side backs off, whatever. And the markets finally become used to it and say it doesn't matter. But when the president says something, the markets pay attention.
Well, and that's the problem. Again, these companies are behind the scenes assuming everything is true until it's not, until it's announced it's not going to happen. And the only way you can price it in is to assume that it's going to happen. Because the risk comes when you don't price it in because you think, oh, it's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden you've got to make major adjustments. And so
you always prepare for the worst.
They have to.
Yeah.
It's you can't run a business otherwise. And there was talk about overtime pay. I remember one company that just kind of went in and it was going through the courts of all right, overtime pay, salaried employees and everything else. This was during the Obama years, may have been the final year of the. Wow, that's so long ago, 9 years ago. But this company that I had a family member who was a key employee there. Everything stopped after hours when this announcement came down, right, of what the court might do on it, and they, but we don't know. We have to assume that the court is going to keep it in place and they're not going to throw this out.
Are you talking about something specific?
Yeah. It's as I mentioned, overtime and
okay. I didn't know it was related to tariffs or that overtime. Okay.
No, regulation on overtime and for employees and salaried employees and everything else, and they were going to change that. It goes back several years, and we covered that then. But they were scrambling through, and you can't assume anything is going to. You have to be prepared, and you have to behave as a company as if it's going to happen. And now, the markets as a whole, if you watch just the Dow, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, that's the collective. But each individual company that's impacted by any move by the government on regulation, tariff, laws, anything, they have to assume it's true. And then you go from there. There's so much right now, there's so much uncertainty in the market because we said it, I think it was yesterday we said it. We don't believe that the Trump administration owns anything of negative growth in the first quarter.
No, they don't.
That's clearly on the Biden administration. we're talking negative growth in the second quarter. That's more in your territory, and we'll see what happens. But I don't think you completely own that. The point being, you pair those two, because those were the headlines on Monday. The stories on Monday really were, on the markets reeling, were, yeah, but the recession comment, that when you include the recession comment. So basically what they were saying was, if you read between the lines or if you lay out everything that the media was covering, it was, here's what the markets think. The markets may have priced in the moves on tariffs. And companies are moving forward as if, it's going to happen, but that's already priced in. But the comment on negative growth, on a possible recession, on the heels of, two reports now from 3 in a row from the Atlanta Fed, updates on their GDP now forecast. First one was 1.5, the second was 2.8. As of March 6th, it's 2.4. They haven't, there's certain data that comes in.
Negative.
And then they change, and that's negative 2.4 right now is where it is for the first quarter. You have 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. That's the recession. And if the market believes that the administration believes, oh, yeah, it's a possibility, and they're going to brace for that. Because they're looking at, Lutnick, they're looking at everybody. They're looking at everybody in terms of finance in the administration. They're thinking, well, these guys have to know. These guys have to know. And if he says, yeah, it's possible, that's not a good sign. And that's where we've been. And I don't know. On the tariff move, when the 50% announcement hit yesterday, again, I was like, yeah, no, he's not. That's a threat. That's something that's not going to happen. He's saying, back off of this, or I'll do this. And by the way, we've been asking the question, if you're pro-tariff, why not 100% and why hesitate at all? If you think it works.
Yeah.
If it works,
right.
Implement them fully and don't hesitate. And, that's the all over the place here. Forget the market being a bit wiggy. I think it's getting a bit wiggy at the White House. I think they're it's not a crisis mode, it's a chaos mode. And I don't know that they know where to go, because Trump will use that, again, the 50% thing I took that as a threat, and it turns out, well, yeah, it was a threat. But the media runs with it as if it's not a threat. Oh, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. Like, all right, calm down. He's not going to do it. And then, you look at that inside the White House, staffers and anybody who's in the cabinet related to any of this, and really it touches pretty much every cabinet member, directly or indirectly. They're in the mode of, yeah, we don't know. And that's why you have to be careful about what you say. You have to be careful about how you're going to approach all of this. If you want to do, you've got to be clear also with the American people, because if you're going to make these kind of moves, you need to tell people where it's going. The announcement when he was telling the press the other day, it's going to be so much money, we won't even know where to spend it. Well, first of all, what do you mean by that? And second of all, how do you think this works? It doesn't work that way. Who's paying the money? The consumer's paying the money. And if these tariffs are implemented fully, there's going to be that impact, and that will be the story. Tariffs will be the story.
Well, it's a story right now.
Well, I mean, it will be on the car lot. Well, we were going to buy a car, but, we don't know now. Everywhere. All the local media, we talked about this for years. The local media is where the impact is made. Our own Jason Scott went out to,
yeah, you're right.
So-and-so Motors.
Yeah, we've talked about that many times because it's it's the personal story, the hardship stories that will come. That this is more expensive, that's more expensive. So I mean, I thought again, I'm not surprised by any of this because Trump said he was going to do it, and when he didn't bring in people, as we talked about before, like Steve Moore or what's his name from
Larry
Kudlow, and had Navarro and Ludnick and Bessert in there, I knew that, at that point, I think we both knew. We said, okay, they're going to go forward. They're going to try this tariff thing. We've been through it before. We've experienced the threats before. We've seen countries do this. And what you're seeing right now is what it always comes down to. The threats go back and forth. I mean, this is not surprising. I mean, this is what happens. And everybody's trying to, get their little victory here or there. We'll get to the Levitt and the Associated Press reporter yesterday who both got it wrong, where, she was saying it's not he was saying it's a tax, and she said, well, it's not a tax fact. I think she said it was a tax cut. And she said, no, it's not a tax on the American people because it's charged to the person who is importing into your country, which is correct, but that's like saying, as we've always said, it's an effective tax. It's not actually a tax because they don't call it a tax, but it is, it is an import tax, actually, on those things coming in, which then becomes an increase in cost for the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard yesterday the surrogates saying, well, it's not a tax, you just don't buy it. Well, the president believes you will buy it.
Right. That's why he's talking so much money, we won't even know where to spend it.
And this is where the confusion comes in. I mean, they're all over the place on it because you can only be all over the place on tariffs.
Right.
There is no other way. You've got to do this because it is going to have a negative effect. So you've got to spin it however you try to do it. But, yes, of course it's an effective tax, which the administration has said they expect will be able to fund the entire budget of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't have it both ways. And, so I find it interesting. I do think, for example, the surrogates of Trump, as soon as Ford said it, he crumbled. Well, when you hear what he said, he didn't crumble. He said there was an olive branch that, they called him and said, look, we'd like to, we'd like for you to come in. All right, we'll talk more coming up. We're running late here. There's so much to talk about. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It's not always easy to spring back from the harsh days of winter to warmer months ahead. From de-icing chemicals to hidden debris underneath snow and ice, winter conditions can do serious damage to your truck. Here's a must-do maintenance check to help you minimize downtime and stay rolling. Make sure your fluids are at proper levels ahead of spring. Fluid is to trucks what blood is to the human body. Low fluid can be just as harmful as no fluid, and the damage this will cause to your truck is unavoidable. Pay attention to your engine oil, coolant levels, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, brake fluid, and differential fluid.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Ukraine and the United States agree to the ceasefire. We'll have that coming up now. It's to Russia. We'll have more on the tariff games. And what was the other one I want to get to, too? There was something else. Oh, yeah, the continuing resolution. Duh.
Oh, yeah, the House.
Duh.
Yeah.
We'll get to that all coming up. Great show ahead.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Friday Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. So the continuing resolution passed. Trump taking off at Representative Massey yesterday, saying he needs to be primaried. By the way, he said that before, and he was primaried, and Massey won. It's interesting, though, because now I look at this, and both of them are right. Both Trump and Massey are right. Massey's right to say we need to start cutting. Mm-hmm. There was let me get to it here because this was really interesting because it goes back to the question that you and I asked yesterday with all these DOGE cuts.
Right.
Why isn't any of it, put in to say, look, we can cut this and not affect anyone because it's all part of the waste. And we had asked this question yesterday when you have we were told $1.46 trillion that has been cut. That has been saved, $4 billion a day right now in savings is what we're told. Well, the question after that would be, well, then why isn't any of that in the continuing resolution or in the 10-year budget?
Right.
And the other question is things that have been cut in the continuing resolution. I'm trying to find the audio here. That have been cut are actually being funded in the continuing resolution. Well, you ask yourself, well, why? Why is that? And that's what Massey is asking, and others are asking. And then the other side with Trump, I understand. Look, even Chip Roy said, hey, we haven't increased spending at all. That's a victory now, but we have to do it down the road. And I think the majority of conservatives said, okay, we got to get this one through. But after this,
yeah, right.
After this, we have to be serious about actually cutting.
Right.
Ron Paul put out something. Here we go again. Remember back in 2020 when Congressman Massey heroically stood up against the $2 trillion in COVID spending. Back then, President Trump called Massey a third-rate grandstander and a disaster for America. Massey was correct. He was primaried, and he still won. Because it's tough to sell to conservatives that you are an outlaw when your goal is to cut.
Yeah, right.
And that's where we are right now. But I understand. You want to get this thing through. You want to get to September, and it is a victory to have no increases in a continuing resolution. But the warning is, if the administration is going to keep promoting the fact that we're saving $4 billion a day, already we have found in savings, which is $1.46 trillion, you can't convince conservatives or Republicans that there can't be any cutting if you're telling us nobody is going to suffer from that 1.5. Remember, that's 1.5 trillion in a year is what they're claiming. And then you're saying, well, we can't have any cuts. Why not? It's all Republicans that voted on it anyway, except for one Democrat. So why can't you do it?
This has been my concern with the DOGE thing, not from the DOGE perspective, but how do you get it done on Capitol Hill? How do you not, with all the headlines that DOGE is making every day, how do you not address something right away? It's as if it's not even happening. And what are you going to, I mean, you're going to keep kicking the can down the road? Or are we just going to, get to July of next year and, oh, yeah, no, these are the things that, and then wag our finger. We should stop doing that, but we don't stop doing that? Because if you stand up to the cuts and you say, no, we should have something here that reflects what's going on with DOGE, because people are on board with what's going on with DOGE. And also, on the larger picture, more importantly, we need to.
I thought I'd say the audio cut, and I don't have it. It was a Republican representative who was asked the question. It was by CNN. If you've made all these cuts, if DOGE, exactly the question we asked, if currently the savings are $1.46 trillion,
right?
Because that's what Elon Musk said.
Mm-hmm.
If it is true, and you've saved that right now, and that's just from waste and inefficiency and DEI stuff and things that aren't needed, and nobody is being cut any benefits whatsoever, why can't you do it? And his answer was, I got to find it. I'll find it eventually. I thought I saved it, and I didn't. And he said, well, because it's illegal to do it in a continuing resolution. But he didn't explain why. Why would it be illegal in a continuing resolution unless that's the whole point? But you're saying in a continuing resolution, I know they raise more funds and cut something. Was that accurate, or was that an excuse that doesn't hold water? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it can, from what I know, a continuing resolution can cut because they're cutting stuff and then raising. They're raising funds, but they, for the border and for the border and a couple of other things. But then they're cutting in other areas. Well, why can't you cut what you claimed you saved? Because you're Congress.
Right.
I just don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's it just has me curious now when you get to reconciliation later this year, what will actually get done. Because with the House the way it is right now, the GOP makeup, the fact that they've got a slim margin, are you going to have everybody on with reconciliation? Are you going to have everybody on board? I mean, are you going to be able to get it done? Because if the idea is, hey, for the CR, everybody vote this way so we can kick it over to the Democrats, and if there's a shutdown, it's on them. All right, I get that. All right, if that's the case, we get to reconciliation. Then what? Is that where we start liking messy? We like messy again? Because that's where you're going to, you're using reconciliation. You're going to spend that John Wick reconciliation coin. So if you're going to go big, well, then you're going to fight for what you really want. If you're saying, hey, do this now so the Democrats can take the blame for the shutdown if they're not on board for this CR. And we'll deal with it in reconciliation. The things you want are in, okay, you're telling them they need to fight for what they want in reconciliation. Well, the makeup in the House isn't going to change between now and then. You still have a slim margin. So I'm very curious as to what's going to get done then.
Well, you're not. You may with the Trump surrogates that they'll sit there and say Massey has to go, but you've seen sort of the opposite on social media. It's like, look, you got it passed, and this guy is keeping his foot on the pedal saying, you need to cut, you need to cut, you need to cut. No, if we're the Republican Party and we want the cuts and we got this through, that's still an important voice and an important pressure to have on the Republicans to do it. Because if you don't have somebody saying that, are you really going to cut? And I know Chip Roy said, look, and he's, like I said, they both have a point. Chip Roy said, look, there are no spending increases. That in itself is a victory, and we've got to get this through, and we know. And Chip Roy wants to cut. But this isn't a thing where this isn't a thing for the Republican Party where the president should be saying, okay, these are the type of people that need to go.
Right.
If you didn't get it passed, you might have a better political point, but it got passed.
Right. But it just really it raises my eyebrows on what you do on reconciliation.
Well,
because that's where
well,
you got to fight for whatever you want.
Well, reconciliation is one thing, but that's basically a 10-year budget, and it's going to be the yearly budgets that they have to do, and see whether that actually sticks with the plan that that they have for the next 10 years.
Exactly. That's what I'm curious about. What do you fight for, and how's it played? I'm just curious. I'll wait and see.
Yeah, here he was yesterday. This is Massey on the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I came here to make sure our republic doesn't die by unanimous consent in an empty chamber, and I request a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise and remain standing until counted. An insufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is refused.
Mr. Speaker.
Is the gentleman recognized?
I object on the basis that a quorum is not present and make a point of order that a quorum is not present.
The chair will count for a quorum. Counted for a quorum is present. The motion is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
So there they are. They're cheering at it, and it's like, well, is this a cheering moment?
Right. Yeah.
Again, that shows you where the Republican Party is, though.
Yeah.
You know, it show and that's a concern. Does the Republican Party actually want to cut? But
right.
if the hard work is being done by DOGE, and you said you've cut this massive amount of $1.46 trillion you're saving, that doesn't affect anyone. And the continuing resolution and the budgets that we have seen so far, for reconciliation, don't show anything of that. Well, should you be concerned? And I think most Republicans would say, yeah.
Right.
Now, they may get it resolved, and that would be fine, but keeping the pressure on, I think, is important.
Yeah, right.
And I think Massey helps do that. And I would guess that this is the last time that Chip Roy will say, okay, I'll go along with this because we need to get this passed now.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm curious to see what will happen down the road.
Yeah.
Because, well, it comes down to it. Look, are we serious about DOGE?
Is Congress serious about DOGE?
Right. Is everybody on board? Or no? This is where the real head count starts to happen. This is why we've been saying, again, our audience notwithstanding, we're just a handful of fiscal conservatives over here in the corner of this nation. Just a handful. Because you have to go through everything. Look, DOGE is doing very important work. Start with what they're finding in waste and fraud. Go back to the Inflation Reduction Act. Go through that heaping. These are all things that won't affect people. Waste and fraud only affects the bad guys, really, especially when you're talking about fraud. Inflation Reduction Act, that was incentive building. All right, if the money's been allotted, well, let's pull that back. You're talking about not inflicting pain on a massive level like we're going to have to do when it finally comes down and we can't keep up with the interest on the national debt. That is in our future. I have no doubt. When? It's only a matter of when, not if.
866-98 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. It was Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee who was asked the question. I just can't find the audio cut, but he was all over CNN yesterday. But he's the one that said, because he was asked, the DOGE cuts, why don't you see any of this in the continuing resolution? Mm-hmm. And he just said, well, because it would be illegal to do it in there. And I'm trying to figure out why that would be. But he also goes... He also goes after CNN yesterday. It's really good. We'll have some of that audio cut coming up. Plus, Ukraine accepts a ceasefire deal. Now, where does this go? We'll get to that and more on the tariff games and what other crazy stuff's going on in D.C. All coming up.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, he's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. I'm telling you. Oh, I've got a headache from the research we've been doing over the last couple of minutes here during the top of the hour. This is Representative Tim Burchett on CNN yesterday talking about the continuing resolution and why he normally, doesn't favor these, and he went for it this time. Here we go.
Why would you vote yes this time if typically you vote against something like this?
Because this is the first time since I've been in Congress that we've decreased the size of government, literally. And if you add interest in, it's even more. Inflation in, it's even more.
Okay, now I did the research on it because I saw that Chip Roy said yesterday there is no increase in spending. And then I've heard, well, there's actually cuts in the CR. And I started hearing that just here in the last hour from different audio cuts. And I went, nobody was saying that before.
Right.
Where does that come from? So decided to do we did the research on our own and went right to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. The CR, the full CR, they say roughly equivalent to 2024. In reality, $10 billion of increased spending for the continuing resolution for the fiscal year. Now, if you take inflation, he's right. It would be a cut. And if you take what they're looking at, what they want to spend based on what the projections are they were going to spend, it's also a cut. But I don't view a cut as looking at what we projected.
Listen, honey, I was going to buy this super killer one-off Corvette for $500,000. Decided to go with the Camry. Therefore, I saved $450,000.
So the net result is a $10 billion increase in funding above the fiscal year 2024 levels and roughly flat total funding between the previous two CRs and this one. All right. So, I mean, they're making progress. It is progress being made.
I'll take what I can get. What'd you say? It's actually what they say, 10 billion more?
10 billion, yeah.
Adjusted for inflation. I mean, $10 billion itself adjusted for inflation. Not that big of a deal.
And we know there's a difference between the continuing resolution and appropriations in a budget. We know there's a difference.
Right, because there is, there's the person who made the comment of, it's illegal and all this.
That was Burchett.
And I know Hakeem Jeffries also said it, but I didn't pay attention to when he said it. It just went, yeah. But, and it has to do with the budget authority in the original appropriations. And if it's less or more than what the budget authority is in the continuing resolution. and then blah 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 blah.
That's where I was going.
You know what
blah,
I mean?
blah 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 blah
It's
yada yada
because,
yada.
because then we get back to really the only question I have is it more
Yeah,
or
exactly.
less?
I know.
And then it's it's actually more. Yes, you're right, Eric. It is more or less. Wait, what? No, it's
I suggest we do the federal budget on a postcard.
the world's largest postcard. The federal government just announced they're getting into the postcard making business.
You're like one of these big checks,
Yeah,
that they
exactly.
parade out. You
Right.
won $10,000,
Hey,
and the check is huge.
That postcard's the size of Montana. it's and those are the answers you get. Listen, can you tell us? Just pick a congressman. Congressman, can you tell us? Representative so-and-so. Can you tell us? Is it more or less? Yes, more or less.
Well,
is it? Yes, it is.
what he should
Which one?
what he should have said is, thank God for the Democrats' inflation. It's a cut.
Well, no, I mean, that's if you adjust for inflation. If we were to go back to, forget about going to like the 1972. If you go back to 1741, adjusted for inflation,
It's a huge cut.
it's a huge cut. Compared to what they're paying for diesel in Europe, this is a huge cut. What? That's what? We should all appreciate what has been done here.
Well, I mean, when you look, if the goal is to get the people, behind you long term, because that has to be the goal of the Republicans. It has to. You and I have talked about it. We agree with this president on so many things, on tariffs, especially with Canada and the Mexico stuff and everything else. We have no idea what the hell's going on there. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think they know what's going on. And I think you were quite accurate to begin with. They're in chaos right now at the White House.
Yeah.
They don't know how to answer.
Yeah.
They don't know how to answer anything. And you'll have surrogates saying something that the president is insane now. Right. And this is part of what the problem that they had in the first administration.
Yeah.
And so, but if you're talking about overall, because see, even though I would say there are probably more, Republicans. You have Democrats questioning the tariffs, of course. You have Republicans doing it, but they want to see where this goes. The polling has showed that the American public has given the president 6 months, on these economic issues like things of inflation. We know the White House is extremely sensitive to it. That's why they've backed off a couple of times on the tariffs that they have threatened. Mm-hmm. They know, they understand, but you've got surrogates saying different things, and we'll have some of that coming up here in just a little bit. But long term, if you want to hold them on, even though there's been controversy with Trump, the Democrats are insane. They continue to be insane where they actually take over the news and actually on things that they could hit the president on. And I'm talking about this from if I was a political consultant, they're just caught up in their own insanity.
Yeah.
Actually, the liberal firing squad is keeping them from effectively, I think, attacking the president. It may be unfair, but I'm saying effectively because your target is to hit independents. But they're just so messed up that the president is going to have this nice honeymoon period, and the Republicans are going to have the honeymoon period. And if you're able to continue doing this with DOGE and everything else, and then next year are able to start making some cuts, the public, without affecting benefits that go to people, you have to understand that's part of the problem. You may not solve the whole budget problem, but you have convinced the American public that you're on your way, that at least you're doing it, and there's no chance of getting fiscal sanity with Democrats in power, and that's how you have to explain it. We may not be perfect. This may not be perfect, but the fact is it gets it done. It extends the Democrats' ability to take the news with their insane ideas. I mean, you saw yesterday, did you see the one transgender congressperson who the Republican referred to the biological man as Mr., and they had to adjourn the meeting because the Democrat leader went nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, yeah, you want that. Publicize the daylights out of that. Publicize all the insanity of the fact that they don't want any cuts on anything based on talk about the green card holder who absolutely should be kicked out of the country where they're defending him. All these things, the Democrats are involved in not things that might be 60-40. Everything that they're fighting is the 80-20 stuff.
Yeah. If
that
not
they can't
90-10.
win. And so politically,
Yeah.
to get this, I understand completely. I agree with Chip Roy, because Chip Roy wants to cut.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to cut. He wasn't happy, but he's like, hey, getting this in itself is a victory. And that is true. It is. But most Republicans and conservatives want more victory. And so we'll see whether that can come to fruition next year. But the fact is, we're just the early warning system saying, if you're telling Republicans you've saved right now, you've saved 1.46 trillion over the next year, and there's zero cuts to tell you that you can't cut. And I think I don't know if it was Burchett who brought it up or Roy, but if you can't cut 1%, because if your claim is we've cut $1.46 trillion a year and nobody is affected by it with benefits, and you can't do a 1% cut in a continuing resolution or $1 billion, just $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to look at it eventually and say, okay, you're all talk and no action. So this is just a warning that, of what will happen if you keep throwing out these incredible numbers of savings, yet it doesn't come to fruition in budgets in the future.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's why I wonder about reconciliation. So you have DOGE with big claims, $4 billion a day. And there's a reason DOGE is in place, a pet project by the president. And then you have conservatives in the House saying, yeah, let's do some of that. And if they stand their ground when it comes to reconciliation, is the president going to call for them to be primaried? If they say we should enact what we're finding in DOGE should be enacted as legislation, but it muddies up the waters, is that a problem? Because it will come to that. It should come to that. I don't expect Chip Roy to lay down next time. I don't think he laid down this time, but I don't expect him to give up the fight. And so if you're saying, well, no, we're just going to talk about, DOGE is going to point out the wasteful spending. Well, ultimately, Congress has to get that done. So if Congress decides to take the reins but it's a small group inside the GOP, are you going to label them as troublemakers? Are they going to be carved out as pariahs?
Well, that's the interesting thing. I mean, Massey wants exactly what Trump says he wants.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole point.
How is
it's just what? 6 months sooner?
Right. And that's why I can't wait until we get to, all right, let's get to reconciliation. Let's get down to the heart of it. Let's get down to the real fight. If that's where the fight's supposed to take place, are the fighters going to be carved out? They're going to be sent home?
Yeah.
We're going to be calling for them to be primaried?
Right, because the last thing that you want is a Massey to be gone when it comes to cutting.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the challenge.
Yeah. And the whole thing gives me a headache.
Oh, I know. It was a headache just for me trying to figure out, okay, I'm hearing now two different things. There's cuts. No, the spending is even. And so, thank goodness for being able to find the stats for the actual continuing resolution from the continuing resolution.
I, with all due respect to the fiscal conservatives in the House, the small handful of them, I don't expect the GOP to get it done. My bar is very low on expectations. I just don't. Yeah. I guess my bar is really high. My expectations are low, which means they're not going to reach it. They're not going to ever get there. It's not going to. I don't expect it to happen in my lifetime. Why? History. Well, the GOP in the past hasn't been able to roll back spending because when you really want to get down to the cuts, it's going to require pain.
Yeah, I'm very suspicious about the $1.46 trillion in savings that they claim they have now without affecting anybody's benefits.
Right.
Sorry, but I am. Because if
that's the case, then we should put it in, and there shouldn't be one Republican voting against it in the House. If nobody is affected.
Or more than just Elon Musk should be promoting it. If you have $1.46 trillion in savings already, that's on every yearly budget. Because I saw the other day where someone said, and I agreed with it. It said, well, if you found the $1.46 trillion in savings already in a little over a month, we've saved Social Security.
Right.
Why isn't that being promoted?
Right.
And so they throw all these numbers out, and it's like, what does that mean? And we took the $4 billion in savings. We've already reached $4 billion in savings a day. Then if it doesn't affect anyone, if it's all waste, inefficiency, and DEI, or Department of Education salaries or whatever, why isn't Congress talking about, all right, we want to put this in? And maybe they will in the continuing resolution. We'll see.
Or they don't believe it.
Or they don't
and
believe
they don't want to speak out against DOGE.
Yeah.
Then great. Get on the phone and work it out.
Yeah.
About what's going to be promoted publicly and what isn't. Don't promise the people something and not deliver either way.
Don't promise them incredible, massive cuts that are possible.
Without affecting anyone.
Right, without affecting anyone unless, you transfer that to Congress and then the congressional leadership saying, wait till you see the cut. What I wanted to see yesterday is wait till you see the cuts that we can put in that don't affect any Americans based on DOGE.
Right. That would have been,
and that number.
You'd have a parade.
And that number. Yeah. 866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Smart owner-operators make every single week as profitable as possible. One trip is not enough time to be considered profitable or unprofitable, and an entire month may be too much time to manage. 1 week is the right amount of time to deal with efficiently. To do so, look at the advantages and disadvantages of every day of the week. Match trip length to the optimum day of the week. Plan to deliver on the day you have the best opportunity of getting a load. Your personal weekly plan will vary depending on the weekly delivery flow cycle of your region, typical length of haul, personal requirements, and other factors. What's important is to have a specific weekly plan that helps you be successful. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. Wait a minute. We are Red Eye Radio. We're not it's. Sorry, I did not use the proper pronoun.
This is CNN. I don't know.
I will tell you, though, overall, I look at this, and it's wonderful on cuts where the Republican Party is now. You have DOGE, and you have people like Massey saying, we need to cut now. If the debate is we have to cut, and everybody is in agreement that we have to cut, and Elon Musk has already set expectations with the huge number of 1.6 trillion in savings already, which then that has to be cut. The pressure will be on from conservatives. That's a great argument for the Republican Party to have.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see who's going to win.
Well, of course.
That argument.
Yeah, but this type of argument with the expectation of the money has not yet been there, which also means, though, if the Republicans don't come through somehow, because they have set an expectation, they may have to pay for it. And I don't want what that would cost.
Right.
Because that would be Democrats back in power.
Right.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Download our new Red Eye Radio app today.
Yeah, in fact, if you have the app already and you have auto updates on, it'll update. If not, update the app because it's really cool. Some cool features on it. And now it's free. It was free before, but it's also free now. And if you don't have it, go get it. What are you waiting on?
Yes.
And by the way, thank you to our production staff and IT people who worked hard on getting all that done and updated. So we're just trying to make the experience as best possible while still having Eric and Gary involved. I think that's the way management put it.
I found the audio cut.
All right.
I'm telling you, something's wrong with me the last day. Stuff's right in front of me, and I don't see it. I went by this audio cut that I had saved.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
couldn't
going to
find
blame it on the time change. I'm having that too. There are words where I'm reading and it's like I see the word and I'm like, it doesn't register like it normally does.
That happened to me.
Yeah, it's got to be the time change because for those that don't know, when you're doing this, and there are so many stories. Thank you, President Trump. Then you have to go through and you have to skim because the way that they're written is important, right? You're looking for keywords in a story to pop out and also looking for the parts of the story where they do the explainer. This all began back in 2000 when blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't need that part. And so you're skimming a lot. When they do that, they do the back. By the way, the other day it actually came in handy. I forget the story, but it was like, yeah, remind me again of how this happened. And sure enough, the thing I complain about the most, the explainer, which most of the time is not warranted, because you and I do this every day. Our audience, they're doing, many of them, they're doing the same research we're doing. So you're going through those stories and you don't need the update from the year 2000. But I forget what it was. And I was like, yeah, how did that go down? Oh, yeah, there it is in the explainer. But it is, and why it matters. I did notice, by the way, CNN.com is doing live updates on the Trump administration. And I thought, well, live updates on what? On the continuing resolution? On tariffs? Nope. It's just in general. Live updates, like when breaking news is happening. They went full on Trump administration live updates. And then I thought to myself, I thought, oh, that's kind of funny. And then I thought, actually, with everything going on, yeah, it might actually be helpful. I really do believe it'll be interesting to watch where this goes from here on spending. What are we going to do? Are we actually going to do this? Are we going to point out the spending? I think we brought up an important point. Is there this is going to sound like a silly question. Is there a disconnect between the White House and Capitol Hill? But more specifically, is there a disconnect between DOGE and the House? Because you've heard Speaker Johnson mention DOGE. You know, you've heard members of the House GOP mention DOGE. But do they believe that there's $4 billion in savings per day?
4 billion cuts.
4 billion cuts. $4 billion in savings
a day.
Day.
But here's the point.
That won't affect anyone?
There should not be a disconnect because both the House and the Senate set up committees, DOGE committees, to follow all this.
I know. It's none of this, because here's the thing. If it is believed that, let's just say, I don't know that this is the case. It may not be the case. But let's just say if Speaker Johnson is of the mindset, well, we don't know if there's $4 billion a day. Well, then get on the phone with DOGE, call Elon and say, look, be careful how you promote this, because you're putting something on us that's impossible, and we all want the same thing.
Yeah.
If we all want the same thing, then let's get the victory together and look at, all right, here's the wasteful, and be clear also in your messaging. Are you talking about $4 billion a day that's spent in fraud, in bloated admin costs, in all the above? How do you categorize it? Because when it comes to appropriations, it's a different game. There are technicalities that have to go into play about how that money is spent and allotted along the way. The point being, they need to be on the same page. There needs to be a liaison. I assumed that's the committees. That's the whole point.
Right. That's the point that the committees can take. They look at DOGE and say, okay, here's what they have. You communicate with them. You go, okay, now here's what we can cut without affecting anyone. And that's what they should be promoting. After he said $4 billion a day we're saving right now.
Right.
Well, then before you come out with that, you need to communicate with Congress and say, look, this is what we have found and this is what we believe you can cut. Right. Now, you don't need to give absolutes, but you can say that it's that we are aware of these things. We're making sure that nobody's affected by it. With DOGE, we're crossing our T's and dotting our lowercase J's, and we're going to try to get this whole thing done. But here's Burchett on that yesterday. I found the audio cut that I wanted.
Good.
Here it is with on CNN.
Elon Musk is cutting what he says he's cutting. I asked about this last week. Why would you vote to fund that again if you think it's waste, fraud, and abuse?
Well, that's a great question, and we've continued to fund it for probably 20 years. But the truth is that it's not legal to put it in a bill of this the substance. That needs to come later, and I hope that it does.
Well, first he said he doesn't know, and then he said because it's illegal, which is it?
Right.
Now, remember, this is the guy who really wants to cut. He's one of those 4 or 5 real conservatives that say we've got to cut. Now, he voted for this one, but he was asked the exact same question that we brought up by CNN, and his answer was, I don't know. And then it's illegal, and she didn't push him. Well, what do you mean it's illegal?
Because that's important. Why is it illegal? If it is illegal, explain to the audience very briefly. Right. Is it about budget authority in the original appropriations bill?
But we know there's already been cuts.
Yeah, right.
We know there have been cuts. There were cuts and then more spending to a total of $10 billion more in the continuing resolution.
Right.
But, yeah, when I saw that, I went, well, that's a great question. Well, you ought to be furious. And then you said, well, that's a great question. We've continued to fund it for about 20 years. Well, that's the problem. If you're spending it again now, the whole point is you want to stop what's happening the last 20 years. If it's not affecting anybody's benefits,
right,
then Why is it illegal to put it in here? And if it is illegal, why isn't everyone using that talking point right now that it has to come in reconciliation?
Right. And why it has to come in
Right.
reconciliation. Because I think you can do that in brief form.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Absolutely.
get into the weeds on it. Just say it in the way continuing resolutions work in terms of budget authority. These are the things we can do, and these are the things we can't do. And so it has to be done in reconciliation. That's where the real battle is.
Now, I don't know whether he posted this on X before or after he did that interview. And he said, do the 12 separate bills so the shutdown is off the table and spending can be adjusted down. Cut 5%, even 1% across the board. Quit funding the programs that DOGE exposed. So he's making that allegation to Republicans. We need to quit funding the programs that DOGE has exposed and put a number to. And that's why, well, Massey should have never said, I don't know.
Right.
The Republicans set up, both in the House and the Senate, DOGE committees to communicate with Elon Musk before he comes out. Because think about it. You and I went, whoa, $4 billion a day. Let's multiply that by 365 because he's saying the savings is now. They have found the savings now. They're saving us $4 billion a day now. That's almost $1.5 trillion. Well, you've solved 90% of the budget problems, have you not, if that's true?
Right.
Why isn't everybody celebrating now the cuts are coming and nobody's going to be affected by it? Don't overpromise and underdeliver, as a listener wrote to us.
Right.
Underpromise and overdeliver.
Well, and that's it. And if you're looking at, again, if DOGE is, if Elon Musk is looking at things, on the collective, that, okay, this is bloat, this is also fraud, and all these other things, if you're ultimately making the case that you can make these cuts on Capitol Hill without affecting anyone, then there's a massive disconnect. A massive disconnect.
Yeah.
Because either something's not true or it is true and Congress doesn't want to do it, the House doesn't want to do it. I think there's a massive disconnect. It tells me that the House doesn't buy it. It could be that the House isn't listening. But, I mean, you talk about right now, the momentum is on Trump, not on the House. So if you're going to ride that momentum wave, then you go along with what DOGE is doing. You got a committee. Are you going to skin the smoke wagon or not? Great. What a great movie. Because if we're not, then let's all just go back to doing what we were doing. Let's go back to being doomed. Yeah. I just think, we're in this, to your earlier point, we're having a debate about spending.
Yeah.
A real debate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Let's not waste it by going, oh, it is what it is, and then walking away.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, something. 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%.
0.5%.
Right.
0.01%.
Right.
0.00001%.
Right.
And not counting inflation.
Yeah, let's not get into the asterisks. No asterisks.
Yes. 866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Ukraine accepts a ceasefire deal. I found that humorous yesterday because it's like, Ukraine accepts ceasefire deal with the United States. Well, except we're not fighting each other.
We're not. We're both
like,
on the same side, I think.
but it's what you and I said a couple of weeks ago? Time is just flying by. At that meeting, we said we had no problem with it. And if Trump's goal is to get Ukraine to agree to it, and the United States says, "Look, we're here to back you militarily," and
Right.
the intel that's all back again, as we all know, and this puts the pressure now on Russia, and we're going to be strong against Russia. That's what you want,
Right. Well, we said from the beginning of that entire thing of Russia invading Ukraine, it's going to take the world putting the pressure on Russia to back down with the threat of, we're going to carve you out as a prey. We're going to choke you out. Not war, because I don't think it would be required, at least, especially now at this point, years later. The question is, what is Putin going to agree to? Is he even going to agree to go to the table on this yet? Does he believe he has the upper hand? I guess we'll find out.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
How is everybody? You know, I got to tell you, they need to. If I owned YouTube, I'd censor. you know what you need to censor? All the AI videos.
Actually, I'm kind of liking them.
Oh no! I'm talking about with the fake documentaries, with the guys with the AI voice, with the fake documentary guys.
Oh, yeah.
That the clickbaiting is just unbelievable. And I would simply say, if what your title is completely false and not related to the article, you're gone. Now, I will admit I get fooled less frequently now, but still once in a while on YouTube because I don't have. I bought the package that doesn't have commercials.
Yeah,
but it was, and then the AI and you mentioned it last hour that it'll be like. I'm just giving an example of who would it be? Jeffries hits Trump on something, breaking news. Unbelievable that he did that. And then you go into it. Yes, Hakeem Jeffries attacked viciously Trump yesterday. But let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, right.
Hakeem Jeffries was born.
It's a 40-minute video.
In a cabin.
Yeah.
He had 5 brothers and sisters. And it's like, No, just get to. I don't care about that. Get to the major point.
He enjoys oatmeal and likes it's
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate
Well,
that more than anything.
And they also make it look like, quite often on the thumbnail, that it's from one source. You have to look down at the account, because if the account is like the official Fox News account, it's like, all right, yeah.
That's what
All
I've
right,
learned.
that's going to be a
Yes.
Jesse Waters video. I already know that.
That's what I've done. If I don't recognize it, I don't go
Right.
to it anymore.
Right.
It's got to be a legit. It's got to be, even if it's TMZ, I even know it's going to be, they're going to get to the point. But
Right.
if it's a name
Yeah.
you don't know on YouTube, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's when you just go, nope, skip it over.
Yeah,
Don't need to go.
I'm always looking at the account name, and it's like, yeah, I don't know about that. No. My wife and I have been watching the two eagles, Jackie and Shadow. These are bald eagles, and it's a couple, and they have 3 babies. And it's fascinating. It's a cam that's right there in their nest, 24/7. And so they got babies, and they're feeding the babies every, 30, 45 minutes and the whole thing. And it's just a continuing running camera, and it's making the news like everywhere. But it's duplicated. Other YouTubers will take from that. And then, okay, this is going on here. And it looks like the actual account. There are so many bogus accounts made to look like the actual account of. I subscribe, my wife and I, probably a couple of dozen channels. We don't. It's, Rick Beato. That's a given for me, and Rick Beato too. But whatever interest. But then you'll find that the algorithm will float because it's similar content, something that's, it's not the actual account, and what they're doing is poaching from the original account. And it's like, yeah, no, that stuff is, I call bogus on so much of that. There's a lot of content creators are, it's like the internet. You got to wade through so much garbage. It's like doing show prep for us. You got to wade through so much garbage to actually get to the good stuff. But the good stuff is pretty great.
Yep. So I would censor if I owned it.
Well,
especially
I'm kind of with you on,
especially the stuff where the title does not at all match what the content is.
Right. That I don't know if they'll ever get down to.
No, they won't.
Because there's so many individual
they won't.
content creators. I don't know how many they have. Certainly they have Google, the parent company, has an idea of active content creators that are putting out things on a regular basis, at least once, at least a few times a month. But for me, it's the fake stuff. It's not just the AI stuff, but it's the stuff where it's made to look like something that it's not.
You know the best one? And it would be, just giving an example because I don't even know whether this one exists, but it's the Brady Bunch kids. What do they look like now?
Oh, yeah.
And they'll be, when you just see, you haven't hit the video yet, you're just seeing the picture of it.
The thumbnail, yeah.
And it would be like, was it Maureen McCormick or something?
Yeah, and she looks like the old lady on Titanic in the
Yes,
thumbnail.
exactly.
Yeah,
That'd be the
like,
one picture.
wow.
You're like,
She didn't age well.
That's
not even her.
That's how you know I'm
Yeah.
not going to it.
Yeah.
See, that's what
Right.
I've learned.
Yeah.
Well, no, I know she doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
It's
Well, no, as users, it's interesting because as users, we become more sophisticated in recognizing what the clickbait is. What's also interesting is that there are some that I subscribe to, and every once in a while they'll kind of clickbait and they'll go, okay, guys, I know you saw the clickbait in the thumbnail, and they'll kind of address it within the first minute of the content. And that I can appreciate. It's like, okay, you understand what I'm doing. Because for me, I want the channels that I subscribe to, I want them to be there, right? I want it that, hey, keep it coming. So I want them to work. I want them to be successful, monetize, make it worth the time of the content creator. in whatever I'm watching. So I understand why they do the clickbait for the non-subscribers when someone is seeing that account for the first time. You know, one of them that I follow is this guy who's a great fisherman out in the Bay Area, diehard fishing. And Adam is really knowledgeable when it comes to fishing. He's not Mr. Beast when it comes to YouTubing. He has tens of thousands of people, though, that watch his videos. Well, one of the first searches I do, it was my first channel I ever subscribed to. I just did this search of kayaker and shark, right? And I just typed it in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because to me, getting on that little kayak in the ocean, wow. You know, and they don't, most of them, I mean, depending on where they are, don't encounter sharks on a regular basis. But of course, it's got to be a threat. You know, you got to understand your surroundings. You got to know what you're doing when you're out there in the ocean. And that's how I found that account, kind of as a, you know, because it came up in the description. And it wasn't necessarily clickbaiting, but it was something designed to get your attention. But the content delivered. It was exactly what it said. You know, I look at things that are going on in the media right now, because the whole idea with Elon saying, you are the media. We are both the media and the consumer, because in the idea, you are the media is something we've been saying in different words for years. You have the ability to find the truth. You are the journalist. You can go out. In fact, I would say that most people have the ability that journalists, if you think about it, 30 years ago, journalists didn't have the ability. You know, I mean, if you wanted to be a journalist, people didn't have the ability to go out and do what journalists do, because journalists would have to, you know, you got to put your shoes on, feet on the ground, and you got to, you know, make calls. You got to do all those things. Well, today we have so many sources in the palm of our hand, you know, right here in this one device. And it's interesting to me to watch all of that play out, because we're the media, but we're also the Hollywood. We're creating content. I mean, regular people are. You know, not us, because we're not.
And
people.
Also the people are also great propaganda machines.
No, they really are.
Yeah, they are.
Because they understand. They know when you have, there are companies out there that actually help them manage their channels, and they understand what the algorithm is. They actually can look back and say, during this 3 minutes when you were in your garage working on that truck, and you were bleeding the brakes. This actually happened on the channel I follow the other day. He actually addressed it. He goes, okay, guys, I'm going to bleed the brakes here, but I'm not going to show the video, because I looked at my algorithm, and every time I do bleeding brakes on a truck, you guys tune out, and you don't want to see it. So I'm not going to show it to you. And so we'll come back after we, you know, do this and blah, blah. They know exactly what the audience wants and doesn't want from that channel.
I was going more that we are the media. I thought you were heading towards community notes and things like that. And I was just saying that reporter, because you were talking about the citizen being a journalist, whatever, which they can be, because they can have their own page, they can acquire listeners. But, you know, the people accuse the media of being propaganda, but there's a ton of propaganda. My point was coming from individuals on Facebook all the time, and you have to weed through all of that.
Oh, yeah, in terms of just the normal conversation, normal postings and everything else. But as individuals become content creators, they kind of also engage in propaganda, you know, because they understand, well, that's going to work for the algorithm. You know, that if I phrase it this way, you can call it clickbaiting, whatever it is. Or if I phrase something this way, I know I'm going to get interest. And it's like, it is the ins and outs, ups and downs of the world we live in today. You know, I mean, you think about like a Hollywood trailer for a movie. So many of the trailers these days, I found a handful that didn't deliver. I ended up watching the movie, but the trailer was horrible. It wasn't the trailer that brought me in. And then I was like, actually, somebody needs to go back and redo the trailer. It used to be the opposite. where, well, I think we just watched the entire movie in that 2-minute trailer. We pretty much know what's going to happen, so they cherry pick it, and then the movie ends up being horrible. But it's kind of that, with the content creator now in place, they also understand how to manipulate and how you bring people in. It's part of the gig, really, if you're going to do that and make it a living.
But they have to stop with the background. When I see a YouTube story that says, Rubio hates Trump.
Yeah.
I want to know, that's hypothetical, by the way.
Right.
Why Rubio hates Trump.
Right. Yeah.
I want to know that when I click, hey, here's what happened yesterday. Rubio hates Trump because of this.
Yeah.
It's like, Marco Rubio
was a former senator from Florida.
And
blah, blah, blah.
as a child, it's like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
Yeah.
Just tell me the story.
Right.
But the thing is, it ticks me off. I look at who wrote it. I put it in the back of my mind. And it's got to the point, if I don't recognize it as a news source, I don't go to them anymore.
Exactly.
So they've actually hurt them. To me, I think they've hurt themselves by doing it, because I go, oh, wait a minute, I know that. I know this. I've actually got accustomed, because that's how much I'm on YouTube. I've actually know a lot of the names now and go, nope, that's just, they don't get to the point.
Method,
they don't get to the point.
even if it's a different account, you recognize the method going.
Yes.
And it's like, no,
Yeah.
I see that for what it is.
Yeah,
You've become a lot more sophisticated.
I almost know going in, no, I can't go to this one. They're going to start with giving me background from when they were a child.
Yeah. And
I want immediately what the headline says.
Right.
I want that information.
Right.
Because I don't wait for news anymore, and I'm not going to wait for somebody to get to the point of the headline.
Right.
Because if they don't immediately get to that point, then I believe that the headline is false to begin with, and 90% of the time it is.
Yeah.
Coming up. All right. Ukraine agrees, accepts a ceasefire deal. Will Russia? That and more on the way. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right. Ukraine's agreed to what Trump wants in a 30-day ceasefire. Now it's time to get Russia aboard and see if Russia will agree to it. We had said this, and we had no problem that what happened at the White House, because we believe we could care less about decorum anymore. We want people to be blunt and tell us what they really think.
Yep. I'm with the president. I'm glad it played out that way in front of the media.
Yeah, and so here, and we said, well, look, he's trying to get Ukraine to agree, and then you put the pressure on Russia, and they're talking tough as if they're we're going to expect a lot out of Russia, and Trump said it a couple of weeks ago, especially with the whole mineral agreement. He said, no, we're going to expect to end the war, they have to give some of that land back.
Yeah, right.
And here yesterday was National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Just think about it. We've gone from if the war is going to end to now how the war is going to end, and this was an important first step, and that was under President Trump's leadership. He has literally moved the entire global conversation to where we had a very senior Ukrainian delegation with us today. We've had engagements with our Russian counterparts, and now it's how the war is going to end, and that's under President Trump's leadership.
Okay, so we do know it's under President Trump's leadership. You made that clear.
Right.
No, but it is. I mean, the emphasis, you said it multiple times. I'm like, okay.
I think you have to, you kind of have to go in and take the credit, right? Nobody's going to give it to you.
I agree, because I just thought it was humorous that was done multiple times.
Yeah.
But yes, we have said you want to promote the things that are working for you. And the latest Emerson poll that's out, everything is working for the president except one thing. the economy. That's it.
Yeah.
He's way underwater on the economy and tariffs.
Well, and I think I sense that there is right now there is they're in chaos mode, and I don't expect that to last. If Larry Kudlow steps down at Fox Business and goes back to the White House, that might be an indication of change to come. But I do believe that they're likely to move on something sooner than later, because you can't keep taking this. The thing is that the chaos mode isn't working for you because all of your surrogates, including your official surrogates, are having issues in answering questions directly. And that's because there has to be direction. There has to be something either settled, a new USMCA, or whatever it's going to be, in place. And then you say, okay, what's done is done. And if it means, tariffs stay in place, they stay in place. Because the threat and then the hitting of the brakes, I think that's the problem. The 25% you and I were noticing that the tariffs on steel and aluminum, the 25% tariff increase on all steel and aluminum imports have gone into effect now. And again, I think if you look at those situations where, again, they can't answer, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, I think they're likely to, all right, let's get an agreement done so we can announce it. Whatever stays in place, but at least we know what's what. We'll see if that happens.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. As always, download our new Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. Yes, it is new. I'm not just making that up. We probably a lot of you, didn't even know it because your apps automatically update.
Right.
So it probably updated already, and if not, you can update.
Right. If you don't have it set to automatically update your apps, then you need to update it if you've already got it loaded on your phone. If not, just download it. It's free.
Looking at the new Emerson College poll, president doing really good. Things like the border. You even look at what I think, on foreign policy things, president took a hit of a couple of points because of the Zelensky blow up. We think the public, if they viewed that in a negative way, was wrong for doing it. But the president will be judged whether, if he can get a ceasefire, he can get Russia to agree.
Yeah.
If he can bring peace over there, if the Israeli situation gets much better as it is, I think those numbers will go up. Mm-hmm. The one number where he's getting killed is the economy.
Yeah.
On every single poll, he's getting killed on the economy and tariffs.
Right.
And let me just see here. Let me get to the actual polling numbers. The economy now is, and we said this was going to happen. We said this is the challenge. He got the border cleaned up so quick, people went, well, that's done. Next, of course, the only one left is the economy. I mean, that was the big one. According to the poll, 48% disapprove of his handling of the economy, 37% approve. A plurality, 46% of voters say that Trump's economic policies are making the economy worse, while 28% think they are making the economy better. Most voters think that increasing U.S. tariffs will hurt the United States economy, 53%, while 37% think it will help the economy. That's a problem.
52%
of blacks believe that they are worse off than they were a year ago. 40% of Hispanics, 38% of whites. So that's the challenge that the president has. You know, you and I were talking about Caroline Leavitt yesterday, and we both thought it was her weakest day.
Yeah, she was scrambling too much.
Yeah, she was scrambling. You could see her going through, taking her notes and looking at it. She was definitely reading a ton of things. Look, the tariff thing is a mess inside there, and we think that there's probably a lot of people inside the White House that aren't happy about it. Right. You know, you've got Navarro, you've got Lutnick probably are for it and are pushing it, you know, big time, the tariffs. But this was a question asked, does this administration still consider Canada to be a close ally of the United States when talking about the tariffs? Here was her response.
Jasmine. On Canada, after all of these threats to increase tariffs or turn off electricity, I wonder, does this administration still consider Canada to be a close ally of the United States?
Well, I think Canada is a neighbor. They are a partner. They have always been an ally. Perhaps they are becoming a competitor now. But as the president also laid out in his Truth Social post today, he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States.
Now, if you're hearing the sound, it may sound confident, but she's shuffling through her stuff and looking down. You can tell that she's doing reading when she's answering that question. The other thing is, I have no idea why they insist on doing something that the American public knows is pure BS.
Nobody else is talking about this.
Yeah, nobody is talking about Canada being the 51st state. Nobody wants Canada to be the 51st state, especially Republicans don't wish Canada to be the 51st state. They would become the largest state, and they would become a massive blue state with 2 additional Democratic senators and a ton more of House members.
Yep.
It's something that nobody wants. We have no idea why they are stuck on this idiocy, but they are. And there isn't one Republican, and if you say you're for it, you're lying.
Nobody is talking about this.
No Republican wants Canada as the 51st state to have the biggest state in the union, another blue state. It's stupid. It's dumb. Stop it.
It worked on social media during the interim after January 20th.
Yeah.
There's no point because it's not going to happen.
Right. And that wasn't joking there. That's serious.
Yeah. Right.
That's a serious message.
Well,
stop with the idiocy.
It was a go-to in answering a question on Canada.
Yeah, it was the number. It was really the first thing. And the other thing is, too, it's interesting because she said they're an ally, they're a competitor. That comes from Navarro. Free trade, bartering and exchanging things to Navarro is competition. Trade is not competition.
No.
If you're talking free trade, it's not competition. For a variety of reasons, some countries do things better than other countries, and people are willing to buy those things from that other country. They're willing to exchange money for something else. That comes straight from Navarro, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That basically they're a competitor. What do you mean they're a competitor? How? What are we competing them against Canada with?
Right.
What is it? Hockey? Okay, maybe hockey.
They win hockey. We win everything else.
But the idiocy has to stop. It's stupid. You're using that as a crutch, and it's a dumb crutch to hold. So, White House, stop with the idiocy.
Well, because
Canada doesn't want to be the 51st state. This is like what is this? Their own version of the 2-state solution?
Right.
You know,
that nobody else is talking about.
Nobody wants it. We don't want it. Well, the most important thing is not one Republican wants it. Not one.
Because it would mean an advantage to
the Democrats.
Yeah.
Stop with the idiocy.
Yeah, you're not going to. And on top of that, it was such an easy answer. Of course, they're an ally, but we have trade deals to be worked out here with every ally.
Yeah, I just
and you just leave it at that. I mean, because the basis of the question is silly if you compartmentalize it. Because what the reporter's trying to do is, again, have, in this case, Levitt speaking for Trump, draw that line, right, between the U.S. and not say anything but, of course, they're an ally. But partnerships are going to be negotiated, and we want to make sure we're doing what's best for the people of the U.S.,
Yeah.
and it's that simple. And
they're
on there.
They're an ally, and we're negotiating trade.
And that's all you have to say.
That's all you got to say. Yeah. But it's so stupid now. It's just dumb. This is the thing. You know how dumb it is. It's so dumb. Democrats would do something like this.
Yeah, let's not keep something going here that's, again, was clearly tongue in cheek, or one of those conversations that you have while you're, sitting at a round table. Hey, imagine if, even on Greenland, what is the approach on Greenland then lately?
Oh, inviting them in and offering them all great stuff to come in, right?
You should take a look at all the advantages you guys would have.
Yes.
We invite you to do that.
And then this is the one that went viral yesterday.
All right.
Okay, this is the Associated Press reporter. By the way, he's pretty dumb himself in his because he's asking all the wrong questions. But here it is. Here we go.
When President Trump last addressed the BRT when he was on the campaign trail, his big push was on tax cuts. He's going there today as he's proposing tax hikes in the form of tariffs. And I'm curious why he's prioritizing that over the tax cuts.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people.
She said she would never lie. How are tariffs a tax cut for the American people?
Right.
She said, I will never lie. So is it ignorance or is she lying?
It's one or the other.
And then it continues. Here we go.
And the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts. As you know, he campaigned on no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security benefits. He is committed to all three of those things, and he expects Congress to pass them later this year.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have. They don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you're trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made.
Now, and then she quickly moved on to someone else. Mm-hmm. Quite touchy, aren't we? Now, the Trump surrogate said, what a wonderful, she dominated the reporter. Mm-hmm. She did not dominate the reporter.
No, that was a diversion.
Yeah. The reporter asked a dumb question. I wouldn't have gone there. Have you ever paid a tariff? Well, I guess we probably all have in some form. Mm-hmm. It's it shows you this. She has been dealing with topics that are 80-20.
Right. Yeah.
It's very easy to be a presidential spokesperson when you're dealing with topics that are 80-20. This is not 80-20. This is the one issue. This is the worst issue for the president right now in every single poll. Every poll shows that this is the worst issue for the president.
Well, it's the area where he's not winning when he's winning on everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. She has a tough job, but the fact is, you're hired for when you have to defend something that isn't popular.
Right. And if you're going to use a diversion tactic, which I expect you to do in that job, you're going to have to use that, at every probably once or twice a week going forward. It's not an easy job. But you say the president's been very clear about about tariffs being pro-growth in the United States. And he can't wait until these tariffs are fully enacted to demonstrate that fully. I mean, if you're going to avoid the question and walk around it, I would not approach the I'm offended that you're testing my knowledge thing, because that reminds me of Karine Jean-Pierre.
Right.
I'm offended. Well, nobody cares if you're offended.
Yeah, I don't care. I want the answers. I want it to make sense.
And it's, again, you're going to get stupid questions from the liberal activist media. But if you're going to walk around it, if you're going to do a diversion, then do a proper diversion and have it come back to the president.
But she should be tested. When she says tariffs are a tax cut for the American people, she should be tested.
Sure. Yep. But if you're going to do a diversion,
right. Because
bring it back full circle,
because
again, you're not going to answer the question anyway.
Here's the test. Could she sell that to Republicans? That tariffs are a tax cut for the American public?
No.
If you can't sell it to Republicans, you can't sell it to anybody else.
Well, the polls show.
If you try to make that case, then you should be tested on your knowledge of economics. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Ooh, the pronoun issue became an issue yesterday in the House.
Oh?
We'll have the details of that coming up.
All right.
Oh, my gosh. It's just...
Okay.
It is pure lunacy. Pure lunacy.
Yeah.
But to end this hour, stop again with the 51st state. There isn't one Republican that wants it. Don't try to sell something to the American people or Canada that 100% of Republicans are against.
And if we're going to seriously take on a 51st state, shouldn't it be Ireland, since Rosie O'Donnell's already spent the money to move there?
Oh, is that where she moved? I saw she moved.
I think it was Ireland.
No, they're I'm 100% Irish. Hell no.
Yeah.
They are so incredibly insane woke.
Well,
in Ireland, never. And that insults me as an Irish person, because we're not politically correct at all.
Rosie O'Donnell confirms she's left the U.S. That's how relevant she is. She actually had to tell somebody she left.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Very quickly, we just did the math here during the top of the hour. Why no Republican wants Canada to be the 51st state, which is why we told the White House, stop it. It's stupid now. It's just dumb. Don't make that your first argument, as Carolyn Levitt did yesterday, because it's a dumb argument. We'll give you the specific reasons why. California right now has 52 members of the House. All right? 52 members. Currently, there must one be vacant. 43. Oh, no, they're not. Okay, no, I'm sorry. They're not. 52. 43 are Democrat. Only 9 are Republicans.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Members of the House, 43 Democrat, 9 Republican.
Yeah.
That, wow. That's a 34 Democrat advantage coming just from California.
Mm-hmm.
So 52 members of the House. Canada, if they became the 51st state, that's not happening, but we need to talk about it since the White House is obsessed with this stupidity. Canada, as Eric figured out, would have 57 House members.
Mm-hmm.
And Canada, you can make the case, is as liberal or even more liberal than California. If you take the same ratio, that would be roughly a plus 40 in Democrat members of the House just from Canada. You would have more Democrat House members from the state of Canada than you would even in California. And so 2 states, California and Canada, would make up over almost a plus 75 Democrat House members, those 2 states alone.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean,
Plus
do we have to go the full measure and spell out what that means for the Electoral College?
Oh.
Would you ever
Wow.
have a Republican president?
You may have another Republican president. Who knows when the hell you'd ever have a Republican House again, ever.
Right.
And you've just put 2 Democrat senators into the Senate. So this is why it's stupid for the White House to continue with this stupid narrative of Canada becoming a 51st state. Because there isn't one Republican that wishes that to happen. Not one.
No. Nor should you.
No, nor should you. Right. So there.
I'm surprised Democrats haven't jumped on saying, look, we know it's not going to happen, but
I know.
we would love it. Do the math.
If they choose
all of a
to.
sudden, they would be for the Electoral College again. But who needs consistency when you're talking about the Democrats?
Oh, my gosh, that is funny. I'm glad to be back. We love the Electoral College.
No,
This
we've
is
always
wonderful.
I don't even know anybody who's against the
Electoral College.
Yeah.
Hold it. Wait a minute. Let me just hold it. Let me check
Right.
one thing here.
Hmm.
This is very important to check.
Okay.
I don't even know.
All right.
Does Canada have voter ID? Okay. Let me see. To vote in the federal election, you have to prove your identity and address. There are 3 ways to do this: your driver's license, any other card issued by the Canadian government with your photo, name, or current address.
All right.
Your health card and a bank statement, utility bill, student ID card. If you don't have an ID, you can still vote if you declare your identity and address in writing and have someone who knows you and is assigned to your polling station vouch for you. Oh, so somebody has to know you from the polling station.
Interesting.
Now, the fact is, you look at it and go, well, a health card and a bank statement. Well, yeah, because you're talking about they want to make sure you're a Canadian citizen if you have a health card.
Now, is it required that you have to have one form with a picture on it, a photo on it?
I don't know if the health card, it looks like, from what I can see, the health card has your picture on it.
Yeah.
It shows
Which
here
would make sense,
Elections
yeah.
Canada. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
is that stricter than California?
I think, right? Wouldn't it be?
Well, here it is. California Republicans announced yesterday that they are launching an effort to put a referendum on the 2026 ballot that would require voter ID in elections. Democrats have resisted any attempt to require voter ID. So there it is right there. Despite the fact that the voter rolls have been shown in the past to include millions of inactive or ineligible voters, despite ineligible voters being registered through the state's voter program, and despite public support for a basic ID requirement. So last year, Newsom signed a law preventing local authorities from requiring photo ID to vote. So there you go. Looks like it's tougher in Canada.
Right.
It is. All right. Maybe there'll only be a 35 House advantage for Canada.
Right. Maybe.
Oh, my God.
I'm not willing to take that chance.
Yeah, neither am I. No. I just...
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you do the math on every level there, and you're going to quickly get to Republicans would never win anything again in our lifetime. How about no?
Now, we did come out publicly for Alberta, but then there is an effort in Alberta to become a part of the United States.
Right. Like, hey, we're in.
Yeah.
We're okay with that.
We'll take Alberta.
Right. Just Alberta.
Yes.
And that's it. And don't try and say,
well,
oh, hey, I've lived over in Alberta all my life, eh?
You know what?
What's that about?
Wait a minute. I wouldn't object to all their natural resources. I mean, the Northwest Territory, they wouldn't have much electoral power with the population there.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's true. Look, we just need you guys to calm down while we take Greenland. Because we have to come through Canada to do it. That's the only point. We won't take over Canada. Just don't call the cops.
All right, now we gave you the poll that was out, the Emerson poll on Trump, where he still is above water, which is good. Like I said, on the economy is the one thing that he's seriously underwater on, and on tariffs also. But what about Democrats? Nearly 70% of voters in battleground districts see congressional Democrats as out of touch, prioritizing political correctness over real issues, according to a poll on Tuesday. Only 39% of voters believe Democrats have the right priorities, while 69% say Democrats are too focused on being politically correct. That hasn't changed much, has it?
No.
A poll by the Democratic group Navigator Research found Democrats took the poll. Wow. The survey, conducted in 62 swing districts, also showed that more than half of voters think the Democratic Party is elitist and does not share their values. Now, remember, this is just battleground states.
Right.
This isn't everyone.
Right.
And so when you look at battleground states, you're like, woo, that's not good at all. House Democrats are set to hear from one of the poll's researchers at a Wednesday conference as they work to rebuild the party's image ahead of the 2026 midterm elections, Politico reported. Yeah, but you got to do something about it. They still haven't got to the point. Not one. Well, has anybody said they suck on the issues? No, just John Kennedy did.
I was going to say Kennedy said
did.
it, but
yeah, John Kennedy did.
I think he's the only one lately. Yeah.
Ooh. While the Democratic Party has long sought to brand itself as a working class party, for example, less than 40% of those polled think the party truly values work. That's interesting because that's not that's not a legislative issue.
Right.
It's do you value work?
Right. Wow. That is interesting.
They don't give me the number. I'd like to see the number. If they say less than 40%, normally it's 39, isn't it? When they say
38, 39.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Less than 40% of those polled think the party truly values work.
Yeah.
Is that the pathology of dependency narrative that the American public has heard enough of? 56% saying Democrats are not looking out for working people. Molly,
well, do those last two go hand in hand?
Well,
if you don't value work, then they're not the they.
Are you reading the mind of this article? Molly Murphy, the Democratic strategist who worked on the poll, acknowledged the disconnect, saying, "How can you care about working people if you don't care about work?"
Yeah, there you go.
See, you had it right there.
Great minds think alike.
It's going to be really hard in the midterms if voters don't think we care about work. Democrats also trail Republicans on the economy, 41% to 46%, according to the poll. Only 27, this is the big problem they have. This is the problem because the goal is always to get independence.
Yeah.
Only 27% of independents think the Democrats prioritize people like them, while 55% said the party is more focused on others.
Yeah. Well,
sanctuary cities. Right
sanctuary
there.
cities, something that the Wall Street Journal found the day after the election in 2016. Why do you think Trump won and Hillary didn't? And the common answer or common element in those answers, it was, again, in Harlem, just kind of a informal polling man on the street kind of thing. But the one common element in those answers is he was identifying the problems here. She was talking about problems elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's been going on for a long time. It's a huge disconnect. If you don't value the work, right? If you don't value work, that means you don't value the time and effort, what it takes to actually do the work, everything that's involved. And we know that about Democrats. And now you see this in this poll.
Interesting that the analysis came from a Democrat, the Democrat strategist.
Right.
If you don't care about work, if you don't honor the concept of work, how can you relate to the working person?
Right.
And that came from the Democrat.
Right.
See, they know what their problems are.
Right.
They know that it's identity politics and the misogyny of the radical transgender movement.
Mm-hmm.
They know it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They also know that it's about work.
Well, they've also gotten away from, because we talked about this recently, the minimum wage thing. Sorry. The government can't do anything on minimum wage that's going to match what the private sector is doing, right? The point being is Democrats lose it when people make more and more money, when they work harder. And we're in what they call the gig economy, but in the era of the gig economy, not everybody's working those side gigs, but in the era of the gig economy, people are becoming more entrepreneurial.
Yeah, great point.
Which requires even more work. You know, that's more work than even, the 8 to 5, because you're working really, really hard, maybe 2 or 3 different gigs in order to make ends meet. But you've got this mindset that if I work harder, I'm gonna earn more and more. Well, the more they earn, the less taxes they want taken, the less they want a big government. They want the government out of the way. That does not favor Democrats.
866-90-RED-I.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous materials shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log, general form and manner, and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. You know, the one question that really she just laughed it off. I almost said Corinne Jean-Pierre laughed it off. I mean, it came from Pete Ducey.
Yeah.
With everything going on here and the stock market going down every day, has anybody at the White House shorted the Dow? Oh!
I would have stopped that right then and there.
She just smiled and said, "No, I don't believe so." And then they moved on to a different question.
I would have looked at him and said, "Peter,
whoa!"
I'm assuming that was tongue in cheek."
She took it that way.
Yeah.
Because she was smiling. But I was like, "What?" He didn't ask it tongue in cheek, though. He didn't have a smile on his face when he asked it. I was like, "Oh, wow."
Yeah. Peter, your parent company wouldn't appreciate that implied accusation. I'm sure. So we'll take that as tongue-in-cheek and move on. I'll save you from this one, Peter. That's how I would have answered it. Now, on the other side of it, whoa, Peter, dude.
Nobody was expecting.
Expand on that a little bit.
I wasn't expecting that one from Pete Ducey.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa.
Quite frankly, I was hoping at some point they'd give Peter more time. I know he's busy at the White House, but more time on the air. I know he does reports and he does, he's on quite a bit. But like give him an hour to kind of recap the day. Here it is from the White House. Because I like Peter Ducey. I think he's very good at what he does. And I'd like to hear some more on that question that he asked yesterday.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app, available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. As always, we appreciate it. Where's that? What I want to get here? I get some audio I wanted to play. We got talking.
Yeah. Right.
I think I wanted to play. I had one set up here. Here it is. This is from Chip Roy.
Okay.
And
right.
This is on the continuing resolution. Let's just play. We got some audio cuts to play here.
Yeah.
This is Chip Roy talking about the fact that Democrats are apparently claiming that the CR isn't acceptable because it doesn't cut enough. Democrats making that.
Make sure you. Democrats.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Here we go. All right.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes. Well, I appreciate the sudden religion my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have found on spending restraint and the need to cut spending. I look forward to all the proposals that my colleagues will put forward on reducing significant amounts of spending and waste, fraud, and abuse. And I'll look for that press conference they'll no doubt have sometime this week. I would also note that when we talk about continuing resolutions, what my colleague just failed to mention was the fact that literally every single Democrat voted for the CR that we just had in December. Like literally every single Democrat except for one who I think maybe took a present vote. The fact of the matter is it has nothing to do with that. The fact of the matter is, for those of us who do not like CRs as a general principle, the fact is because Democrats literally wouldn't pass an appropriations bill out of the Senate, we're left doing the cleanup work of trying to figure out how to move forward while we have an administration that isn't at war with its own people. When the previous administration was blatantly disregarding the well-being of the American people, to have wide open borders, letting fentanyl and letting all manners of evil come into our country, leading to the death and destruction of the people that I represent, people like Jocelyn Nungare, who lost her life to the hands of Tren de Aragua, because Joe Biden decided it was more important to let millions of people into this country in violation of our laws, endangering the people. That's why our bill has additional funding for ICE, to make sure that we've got the beds to undo the damage that the Biden regime has carried out on the American people. Those are the actual facts. The fact of the matter is, no, you don't want to have a CR to continue the funding under Joe Biden because Joe Biden was at war with the American people. Now we have a president and administration that is trying to do the job that they sent him there to do. Secure the border of the United States. Hold back spending. Eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. Get this economy going again. Get the regulations out of the way of the American people and do the job they want us to do.
I've got to find where Democrats were talking about cuts.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I'd like to see. We know if Democrats wanted to cut something, what would they want to cut?
Defense.
That would be it.
It's always defense.
Yeah, that would be it. I don't know what else they'd want to cut. I don't remember any other cuts. I'm sure there was, but minor maybe. I don't remember any major cuts that the Democrats have ever proposed except for defense.
Right.
So, all right.
Yeah. I'm with them too. I'd love to see the outline, the framework.
More audio here. Here's Doug Ford, the Ontario premier, yesterday on tariffs.
Well, just a little while ago, I had an opportunity to speak to Secretary Lutnick. And Secretary Lutnick has sent out an olive branch to us to come down and immediately meet with him, meet with the whole trade administration, and discuss the future. Rather than waiting till April the 2nd, threats going back and forth, tit for tat, I've agreed to suspend temporarily, and we always have that tool in our toolkit, until we sit down over the next day or two. I'll be heading down to Washington along with Dominic LeBlanc, and we'll have a good discussion. You know, with any negotiation that we have, there's a point that both parties are heated and the temperature needs to come down. And I thought this was the right decision. They understand how serious we are about the electricity and the tariffs. And rather than going back and forth and having threats to each other, we have both agreed, let cooler heads prevail. We need to sit down and move this forward. This is a massive, massive deal, the USMCA, which the federal government will be leading the charge. I'll be sitting down with all our premiers tomorrow as well and discussing this and their issues as well. So we're going to go down there and we're going to go down there with confidence. We're going to go down there with strength. And again, hopefully we can move this forward.
You know, the one thing I was wondering is, you know, and listen to the whole thing, and he said he's bringing Dominic LeBlanc, who is the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. So remember, he's a premier of a province.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He doesn't represent the federal government. And one thing that I was wondering, because when he had threatened the tariffs on electricity that would have affected 3 states, including New York and Michigan, I went, I wonder if the federal government wanted him to do that. Now, it seems, initially when this came out, when this made news, it was, okay, he backed off because of Trump's threatened steel tariffs. And then we found out, oh, okay, no, he was on a phone call. Now, who called who? I don't know. I don't know who called who, but it was Lutnick who invited the Canadians down to start negotiating. So that's what he says is the reason that he decided to bring down the temperature, is because Lutnick has invited him and a delegation of Canadians to start discussions with the United States trade people.
Right. Yeah.
So will be interesting to see what goes on. Look, you and I remember we went through this once before. We went through the some tariffs and the threats of tariffs, and I really wonder. You and I said this a long time ago. That and this is when USMCA was passed, and the entire analysis of every media organization, every single one, I don't care whether they're conservative or liberal, was almost identical to NAFTA.
Right.
That there wasn't much of a difference at all. They updated it for technology, but it really didn't change. And that's why when Trump came out and said, this is the greatest trade deal ever. That's a quote, by the way. The greatest trade deal ever. That we said, okay, fine. We've now got rid of NAFTA, and we sort of chuckled. It's like, no, you didn't. But if everybody believes it, that's fine. You wonder why, because the accusation against President Trump is, you approved this deal. You're going crazy at the Canadians for saying they're completely unfair and they've done this. Every single thing you approved of. Anything that is outside of NAFTA, you agreed to keep outside of NAFTA. The entire deal you agreed to. Is this, what I thought yesterday, is this Trump realizing he didn't like the deal that he approved?
Is the criticism of USMCA now catching up with him politically? In other words, you didn't really do much. And then it comes back around and then finally motivates him to do something else.
Nobody's throwing that criticism at him except himself, though. There's been no criticism of USMCA.
Well, no, I mean from when it happened, when it went down. Is he living with the fact that you really didn't change much? Is he finally realizing, that's okay, you didn't do anything, and that's what's motivating him now? Okay, you need to renegotiate it and get the big moves.
Well, and is that
I don't know what those would be, because I haven't heard them talk about going back to the table on USMCA.
Well, they did yesterday.
Did they mention that yesterday?
Yes.
I heard them mention the items covered on USMCA and those exemption things. Did they talk about going back to the table?
Well, they talked about things in USMCA, which means they're going to be discussing things in USMCA. But they won't renegotiate it. I think 2026 is when we're supposed to look at that.
Right.
That and that's in the particular trade deal where you attempt to update it. Mm-hmm. But no one else was criticizing USMCA. I don't know anybody. I don't know any mass on the left or right, except maybe Navarro and Lutnick, who got in the president's ear on that early on.
Maybe.
That we didn't get what we wanted in USMCA. Because we had said it back then. We said it back then. We said, look. He said, if you want to sit there and you go, yes, NAFTA's gone. We went, no, it's not.
Right.
USMCA was basically NAFTA. There weren't that many changes at all, which is why you didn't have much of an objection even from the people that didn't want to get rid of NAFTA. There wasn't any outcry because, as we had said at the time, it's basically the same thing.
Well, and if you're going to put your stamp on it, and you want it to be part of your legacy in terms of trade deals, it would have to be something very different. I don't know what that would look like, but we do know that if Navarro's involved and Lutnick is involved, it's probably not going to be slight adjustments. There will probably be big adjustments, but I don't know.
And when you look at it, dairy is an extremely small minute part of the trade deal.
Mm-hmm.
And lumber, the United States could solve by itself by allowing a lot more trees being cut down in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the big deal? It's not over dairy. That's something that you can promote, that if you don't reach that particular level, you have 250% tariffs go in. But we don't reach that level. We're not even close to that level. So nobody's really paying the tariff at all. So you have to ask yourself at the point, what is the deal? What do they want?
What are you trying to get? What's the get?
If lumber, this Congress could solve the majority of the lumber from having a lot more trees being cut down and then replanted in the United States, then what is the issue? If lumber you could solve, and dairy really isn't the big deal that they talk about because it's so little what's going back and forth to begin with. Even if you lifted, it was unlimited and everything was lifted, it wouldn't matter. Then what do they want? What is it that they want?
Right. Yeah, I can't tell you.
You know, you look at steel, for example, in I think it's only 6% of what Canada uses comes from the United States. Steel, for example.
Right.
You know, so again, that's what I'd like to know. What are you going to be renegotiating? What is the problem?
Right. Yeah.
Specifically, what is it that you're going to be
and if you're
dealing with?
if you're really looking to make a deal, then call the summit and say, we're going to do this before 26. Let's get this done now.
I know there's a different type of lumber that they get from Canada. Can you get that somewhere else?
Yeah, that I don't know.
Yeah. So all I know is the guy who I talked to, who builds apartment complexes in Texas, which, believe me, they're building a few of them. He told me last week, I love Trump. This tariff thing scares the daylights out of me because we need that lumber.
Right.
And if the tariffs go up on that drastically, that will kill us.
Right.
And this is a guy who's totally pro-Trump, completely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's hurting on that particular issue. This is a problem for this White House, and I don't think they know what to do.
Well, the president mentioned farmers the other day. You know, farmers are also going to not be happy with me.
Right.
Well, why you want to revisit something that didn't go well?
It didn't go well last time.
And what are you expecting to get that ultimately would long-term favor them? Is the question. Because there has to be that outline. There has to be the forward-looking outline. Here's what this means. Here's where this goes. And you haven't seen that.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app, our new Red Eye Radio app today. Yes, we have a new Red Eye Radio app. Just created last couple of days, right?
Yeah, launched just a couple of days ago.
Yeah. So you can use it at the end of the show here. If you couldn't listen to the entire 5 hours on our great radio stations, well, we record our show and it becomes our podcast that runs forever.
And by the way, if you already have the app on your phone and have your auto updates on, it will automatically go to the new app.
Yeah.
So
right.
You already have it.
Right. So you will.
If
you
not,
will
then
it.
update the app.
And if you can't listen to one of our great radio stations while the show is on, all 5 hours are streamed on our Red Eye Radio app.
Mm-hmm.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.